Yeah.
Good evening, members of the public and officers. It's 7 o'clock and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on the 19th of October 2022. As always, a little bit of information for yourselves, which I think you all know by now, but we have to do it. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs opposite the lifts or use a security door to my right. Assemble on Hawley Square Green opposite the council offices, and an officer will be in touch with you or come and grab you if we can carry on. Please, I will say we're being live streamed, so I think you know what I mean by that. Filming, does anybody intend filming? Okay, thank you for that. Restriction, of course, on mobile phones. Could you please make sure your mobile phones are turned to silent, and please do not use them during the meeting and while it's in progress. Members requesting to speak under Council Procedure 20.1. I don't see any other members here tonight. Please confirm. No, thank you very much. I should have said I welcome Charles on stage tonight because our other clerk is on holiday. Public speaking, there are no requests that have been received for public speaking. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Councillor Everett.
Councillor Pat Moore is unwell, so she sends apologies.
Thank you. Any other at all? No. Thank you. Agenda item 2, any declarations of interest? None. Agenda item 3, do members agree of the minutes of the Planning Committee which was held here on the 21st of September 2022 be approved as a correct record? Could I have a proposer, please? A few hands going up. I take Councillor Shrub. Seconder, please. Councillor Keane. All agree? Thank you, members. Agenda item 4, planning application for 26 Granville Way, Broadstairs. I will ask the planning officer, which I understand all tonight is with Emma. I won't ask Mr. Livingstone to speak at all because you can't hear him, hear whatever else. Emma, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is for 26 Granville Way. It was brought before members a few committees ago. The application was for a single-storey front extension and 2 single-storey rear extensions. So this is the site here fronting onto Granville Way. This is the property in this location here. And you can see it again in this location here. So the when it was previously brought before members, it was for a single-storey extension that followed on from the ridge and eaves of the existing building, although there had been some amendments to the roof level to reduce it and create a flat roof to reduce the height at ridge level at that point there. And there was a single-storey extension to the rear of the garage and to the front of the property. So this is the front of the property here. The proposal was for an extension that infilled this area in front of the front door, but was set back behind the existing garage. Again, a flat roof that tied in with the design of the existing projections to the front. And this is the block plan. So what's happened since the application was brought before members is members were concerned with the rear extension, the impact it would have had on the light and outlook from the neighbouring property in this location here from their side kitchen window. So members were keen to see the roof design amended to become a flat roof. What has actually happened is that the amended plans have been submitted omitting the rear extension, so that's no longer part of this application, and instead that extension has come to us as part of a lawful development certificate application. They did need to reduce the depth of the extension in order for it to be permitted development, but it did comply with all the requirements, and that has now been approved, so they can now build the extension under permitted development rights. So this application now is solely for the extension to the front, which was that flat roof single storey extension in that location here, and for a very small extension to the rear of the garage. So that's all this application is now for. So this is the existing plan, and this is the proposed plan. So this is the extension here to the rear of the garage, and you can see this is the extension at the front of the property. So it's a 2.95 metre deep extension, but again you can see the fact it doesn't project beyond the front garage, and therefore is not considered to be severely detrimental to the character of the area. And in terms of the rear extension, that's not likely to be visible from the road. And then this is just the existing front elevation and the proposed. So that's the design of the front extension. Again, you can see it's in keeping with the design of the existing garage. And then this is the existing side elevation. So you can see this is a garage projection at the front at the moment. And this is the proposed extension. And then this is the other side existing. And then this is now with the small garage rear extension in this location here. So everything tying up with the design of the existing garage. And then this is the rear. And now you can see there's no extension to the rear of this location, just here to the rear of the existing garage. So it's not considered that there'll be any significant impact upon neighbours from these changes. So I'll just go quickly back to the block plan. So you can see it's a very modest extension to the rear of the garage. It's not there's a 2 metre or so distance to the neighbouring property here. It's not considered that this extension would significantly impact on any light or outlook from the side windows of this neighbouring property. And this front extension, it's set in from the neighbour. So again, from the neighbouring front windows here, they're not even going to be able to really get a view of that front extension. So it's considered to be acceptable. It's recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I move the officer's recommendation, as you heard, is for approval. Could the Vice Chair please second?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Colin Cook. Members, do you wish to debate? Okay, so those all in favour, please show. Anybody against? Abstentions? No. I'm for as well. That is carried. Thank you, members. Agenda item 5 is any site visits which will take place on Friday the 4th of November. So anything tonight, say site visit 4th of November, normally at 9:30 in the morning. Now I'm going to look at Mr. Livingston now, a point of information on the planning application we're looking at tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Point of information for members on schedule item 5C, which is Addington Street Garage, Westcliff West, Addington Place. So following works occurring on site regarding the boundary wall on Hertford Place, the council has received a plan showing details of the proposed flint wall on the site boundary. Therefore, this plan showing the flint wall to replace the non-flint section of the boundary wall is proposed to be inserted into condition 16 on the application. So that condition will now read, the existing flint wall on the northern boundary of the site adjoining Hertford Place shall be retained, with the partial demolished section of the wall reconstructed using flint and brickwork as shown on plan 482 PLN 220, received on the 18th of October 2022, prior to the first occupation of development, with details of the pointing of the wall submitted to prior to construction and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The wall shall be constructed in accordance with the approved details, and the ground of that condition is to safeguard the special character and appearance of the area as a conservation area in accordance with policy HEO2 of the Thanet local plan and advice within the MPPF. So condition 16 is updated in the officer recommendation, and all the details will be shown to members if the application is discussed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. You gather I'm sitting next to Louis Armstrong tonight. Voice like that. Public speaking, as there is no public speaking on any of the scheduled items this evening, I will call upon the clerk, Charles, to read out the planning applications. If a member wishes to reserve an application, will they please call out as he reads. Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Hartsdown Leisure Centre, Hartsdown Park, Margate. Land to the north of Fellon Road and west of Northwood Road, Broadstairs.
Thank you.
The last one, Addington Street Garage 1 to 2 Westcliff Works, Addington Place, Ramsgate.
No. Thank you, Charles. Could I have a proposer that the applications that have not been reserved be determined in accordance with the officer's recommendation? Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Coleman Cook. Do members agree? Thank you, I do as well. Thank you for that, sir. Right, so we're moving on to that application, and I believe it's over to you again, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is a variation of condition application. So members have previously approved the development of the site for the erection of 6 dwellings in this location here. So this is Fairlawn Road to the south of this slide, and you can see there's Northwood Road off to the east side of this slide. So the original application was approved with access into the site from Fairlawn Road, but there was a condition attached to the consent that said that during construction works, access to the site should be from Northwood Road in this location here. So if you can see my cursor, this is the access that we were expecting them to use for the construction of the development. So this is just some aerial views showing the site. So the site's located in this area here. So this is Fairlawn Road in this location. And again, you can see Northwood Road running along on the right-hand side here. And then a closer view. So again, this is the application site in this location here. And again, you can see it here. So historically, there doesn't appear to have been access into the site from Fairlawn Road. So when I initially dealt with the application, when it came in a few years ago, and I visited the site, there was just a fence that ran along the boundary, and you can see there was trees in this location, and you couldn't appear to access the site from Fairlawn Road. And access to the site appeared to be from Northwood Road. So when I met the agent for site visits, that's the location of the access into the site. So and this is the access from Northwood Road into the site. So this is the existing access that you can see for the enlarged piece of the land, with the application site being off to the left-hand side behind these properties. So this is now the access into Fairlawn Road. So when the previous application was in, some works were carried out on site. They didn't require consent for it because all they were doing was removing the fence and putting in a gate. So they've created that access, but then since then we've granted permission anyway, and this would be the access for vehicles into the site to serve the 6 dwellings, with 3 on either side of the road. So this is just a closer view of the existing access now that runs from Fairlawn Road into the site, from both sides. And then you can see this is Fairlawn Road, so you can see it's quite a narrow road. When vehicles park along here, there is restricted width on the road, and this was the concern that we had, which led to the condition seeking them to use the Northwood Road access for the construction vehicles. So when putting that on, KCC Highways felt it would have been preferred to have used the Northwood Road site because of the narrow width of the access, and from a neighbouring amenity point of view, it was also felt that would be useful, so that there weren't any concerns with blocking entrances and things like that. So what has happened since then is the agent has come to us and advised that they are unable to use the Northwood Road access. They don't have legal access rights from Northwood Road. We've seen evidence of the land registry plan for the site, and it currently shows that there's the only access is from Fairlawn Road. They don't have a right of way over any of the land onto Northwood Road, and the current owner of the site to the north of the application site has said that they will not grant access using Northwood Road to the application site, and therefore they cannot build the development using the Northwood Road access. In order to deal with whether there would be any impact on the neighbours from the use of Fairlawn Road as an access during construction works, we've requested them to submit a construction management plan, which they have done. So we've consulted KCC Highways and we've consulted Environmental Health for their comments on this. So this, you can see here, this is the plan that is the proposed, or the layout that we've previously approved for the 6 houses. So you can see it extends the existing access and creates a turning head at the end of the road, and then a parking area in the far right corner of the site. And this is just a closer view of the approved scheme. So this is now the construction management plan that's been submitted. So they're looking to use the Fairlawn Road to access the site. They would create the vehicular access that's been approved for the 6 units would be created for the construction vehicles, and the area that would be used for parking to serve the houses in the future once they're constructed would be used to provide parking spaces during the construction works of the site. So it could be used for some of the workers that come to the site or visitors to the site during the construction period. This is a closer view, just showing a bit more detail. So they're looking at locating some of the stores, sort of the office and the welfare unit that would serve the workers on the site. These are going to be located in these locations here. So you can see the green and the blue squares. You can see again the site parking in this location, and then the access located here. So in order to reduce any impact on neighbours, the construction management plan can provide a number of details that look to reduce the impact from the construction vehicles. So what they've included is that they would provide 24 hours notice to residents of deliveries, that deliveries would only be during 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on any day when the road is most clear and doesn't have as many parked cars. They're looking at providing a display board at the site entrance, which would provide contact details of the company and communication details. So again, if they were intending to have a delivery to the site and then that had to change, those details would be put on the board. And they've also mentioned they'll create a WhatsApp group with residents of the street so that they can communicate with them of any changes again to the deliveries. They're also looking at restricting the size of the delivery vehicles that would use the site. And as you can see with this access, they'd be able to have construction vehicles entering the site and turn in. They'd be able to unload and then turn around and exit the site again in a forward gear. So there shouldn't be any need for vehicles to be parked within Fairlawn Road, blocking any driveways. They should be able to come into the site and turn, unload and leave again, which should have limited impact on residents. So KCC Highways have been consulted with the construction management plan, and they've raised no concerns with this and are happy with the details that have been included. In terms of the impact, in terms of from dust and vibrations and things like that, we've consulted environmental health and they've looked at the scheme. So what they're looking at doing is making sure that any equipment's turned off when not in use, that any dust generating equipment's located as far from boundaries with residential properties as possible, that a close boarded fence is erected along the southern boundary and the eastern boundary of the site to help to stop dust travelling over to the neighbouring properties, and that also help with noise as well, and to create an access gate that would be locked for safety purposes as well. Again, they've also wanted the offices and the welfare unit to be as far from residential properties as possible, which in this far corner here they should be. So we've asked the developer how long they expect the construction works to last, and they've said that they anticipate 8 to 12 months for the completion of the 6 units. So the impact is very temporary, so it should be no more than a year of these temporary impact on the neighbours from the use of this road. So given the fact that they can't use Northwood Road access and they can only use this access, and it is an allocated housing site, and we have approved the development of this site for housing, given the fact it is a temporary impact on residents during this year, and hopefully not much more than that, and given the fact they've done as much as they can to mitigate the impact, and there is adequate turning and parking within the site that should reduce impact on neighbours, and like I say, there's other limitations such as the delivery hours and making sure there is good notice given to residents. It's considered that it would be unreasonable to amend the condition to allow for the use of Fairlawn Road for access for the construction vehicles. So it is currently recommended for it to be deferred and delegated, subject to the legal agreement to come back in, so the SPA contribution that we secured through the original application, we need to secure again through this application because we're granting another permission. So I think they've just submitted that, so we should have that shortly. So subject to that being submitted and subject to the safeguarding conditions that we previously applied, along with a condition that now requires them to comply with the construction management plan, it's recommended deferred and delegated for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. As you've heard, the officer's recommendation, I move that the officer's recommendation is...
Sorry, Mr Chairman, I'm sorry. I know this isn't...
I got...
I know what you're going to say, but I have not received notification, and Charles there knows this, and I phoned, unfortunately, on Monday, too late, because I didn't have any notifications. Only my neighbour had a letter, and I'm the one who's in number 11 at that road, and I'd just like to speak.
I'm sorry, I do understand. I have been... It has been mentioned to me before we sat down this evening that obviously we don't know yourselves personally, but that you had, applied, and there is a time limit and so forth, as members know, and we have to keep to that, I'm afraid. I do understand your concern, but I cannot allow you to speak.
Even though Charles admitted that it was
No.
Democratic Services' fault.
I don't think that's the case, as I understand it, sir. I will stop the conversation there. I'm not being rude to you. I don't do that. But our officer here has explained the situation to me before we started, and I'm quite happy with the explanation he has given me. So I'm sorry, I can't allow you to speak. Moving back to this item agenda, I do move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Please, Vice Chairman, could you second?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman-Cook. Members, Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when this application came, there are a couple of things I want to say about this. When this application came before us last March, one of the things that was highlighted was that the access to the site off of Northwood Road. I think I raised, and it was discussed, that this site, the other part of this site, is owned by a different company, and I think we more or less knew that the access was not via land that was owned by this developer. It was via land owned by the other developer, that we hadn't been told that they didn't have permission to access over, and I feel like we've almost, at that time, approved an application that was based on access from somewhere else, that we may have thought differently if it had been accessed via Fairlawn Road, which is, as can be seen from the photos and the state of that road, and as can be seen by the number of objections that have been received by the residents in that road, and I think is demonstrated also by the number of detailed conditions that have been added to the construction management plan, which go down to a very low level of detail, including something I've never heard of, a WhatsApp group with residents. But, if that's what's needed, then fair enough. But I feel like we've been not... Played. Yeah, I was okay. I wasn't going to go that far, but yes, I feel like we have been a little bit hoodwinked into approving this application on its own. And as I said before, there is another application. There is another solution to this. There is another application that will come before us, and at some point that will, if it's approved, once it comes before us, then there will be an opportunity for both the developments to be worked together without impacting some of these residents, or all of these residents, who live in Fairlawn Road. And I really am very unhappy about this, and I will find it very, very difficult to support this application. And I would be interested in hearing what everyone else has got to say about it.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is unfortunate that the alternative route is not viable, but I feel that this construction management plan is very, very detailed and goes to great lengths to ensure that residents are disrupted as little as possible. It is temporary. These things happen. I think it's unfortunate, but I really think not to enable this development for that reason would be unreasonable. So I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beaufort. Councillor Everett.
Yeah, I use the word play to Councillor Garner, and that's what it feels like to me. I mean, the developer has put in an application which apparently they had no security that they could actually deliver in terms of the application that they presented to us, and we've given permission for that development, and I think, you know, at the time I probably voted for it, and I accept that it's a reasonable development on an appropriate site. But the fact that the developer has now discovered that they haven't got access to the site from the other road is very convenient, it seems to me. I mean, the difficulty we got is, I can well understand that the residents are very upset about it. The difficulty we've got is that I don't think that we can give the disruption that coming down Fairlawn Road would cause so much weight that we can refuse to change the condition. So I'm very unhappy about it, and I understand why the residents are unhappy about it, but the reality is, if we resist changing the condition, I'm sure they'll go to appeal and get it. So we'd just be wasting everybody's time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Everett. Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with Councillor Everett. I mean, I don't approve of this, and I think that we have been misled, I think, on this planning application. As you all know, I'm doing a small extension at my house, and it's nowhere near 6 houses being built on a plot. It's a small extension, and I can tell you how many vans have been outside my house. It is unbelievable just to have people turning up, tilers to electricians to plumbers to plasterers to roofers. It goes on and on and on, and there's no way that all the vehicles will fit in 4 spaces on that site just to build 6 houses. They will be parking down that road, both sides of the road, and blocking it. That's my only concern, and that's my only issue. I don't think four parking spaces is sufficient for the workers to go on site. And to be fair, I do agree with Councillor Everett. I think I'm not happy about it at all in any way, shape or form, and I think if it had come before us, there would have had to have been more of a discussion about it than there is now. But if we do not approve this, I think it will go to appeal and we will lose, and I think that's a shame in a way, because I think the disruption is larger than people imagine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Emma, if you wish to come back for a moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on a few of those points. I think with the previous application, just so you're aware, it wasn't that the developer proposed through that application to use Northwood Road as the access point. When the application came in, we obviously had a lot of concerns from residents, lots of objections with the use of the road. So in order to try and address those concerns of residents, we looked at whether Northwood Road access could be used for the construction. I mean, to be fair on the developer, he did raise some concerns with it and wasn't sure whether he'd be able to get agreement to use the access, but it was hoped that was the case, so he did agree to the condition. But obviously since then, the owner of the site has said no, he's not going to allow the use of that access. So I don't think it was that he initially proposed to use it and then now come back to you saying, oh, now I've got consent, I'm going to change it. That was actually not originally his intention. We tried to get them to use that in order to try and address the concerns from residents, but it obviously hasn't worked because he can't get that access over the land. And in terms of the other point you just mentioned with the parking, so this plan here is showing that that the Fairlawn Road itself wouldn't be used for parking, but you see the blue dots that they've shown along Cox's Lane and Northwood Road, they've shown on here that would be potential parking to serve the site as well. So whilst I've got the 4 parking spaces in the site, if they needed any additional parking, it would actually be along Cox's Lane or Northwood Road, but not within Fairlawn Road itself, which is more restricted through the construction management plan.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Orban.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm in the not happy club, that's going here, but also we need to look at this in practical terms. And just to take up some points that some my fellow colleagues here have raised, builders don't comply with being told to park 200 or half a mile away from a site. They will park wherever they feel like parking, and who is going to enforce that when the builders say, and as Councillor Hart has said, you know, when the roofers, the tilers, whatever turn up and they decide to park in Fairlawn Road, who's going to tell them to move it? Because the site manager, because they'll just say, well, I'm going, mate. So, you know, they'll say, oh, well, you know, supposition, I know, but I think it's a fair point, and Fairlawn Road is very tight. So I think there will be a lot of problems here. I was going to ask a question, but Emma's partially answered the question in relation to the previous access, and should we have asked them to get written consent that they can use it and for that to come in with the application, because we were just assuming that they would get it? Just a question, you know, if you may want to answer that or not, as the case may be. However, regards to that, I think it's right what Councillor Everett and Councillor Hart have said in relation to an appeal. We wouldn't win an appeal on this. So I'm in the, as I said, in the not happy club, but I think I'm going to have to vote in favour of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Orban. Going to bring back Mr Livingston.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to come back on the enforcement point, this was something that actually came up a couple of meetings ago. The Council relatively recently has served a number of breach of condition notices on developers during construction, specifically relating to breach of construction management plan. In fact, we've got a current case where we're potentially preparing a notice that went in front of members not too long ago, in fact, for similar sort of issues. So we do expect and we hope that if this construction management plan is not accorded with, the residents will raise it with planning enforcement, because I think we will hold them to this standard. I can make that absolutely clear in this forum. I think just to come back on your question with regards to written sort of consent, I mean, I think that, yep, in this sort of scenario, I think in the future, then it will be something that I think we'll need to get. It is rare that this sort of situation does come up. Often sites will only have one access point in reality. And fundamentally, what we were trying to do in this instance was to actually alleviate some of the concerns of residents. And it is incredibly unfortunate it hasn't come off. But I think the important thing then is that this construction management plan is accorded with to avoid more disruption than necessary to construct the development over this temporary period.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we're all singing from the same hymn sheet here. I just wondered, the timescale for the development, you said 8 to 12 months. I presume that's for all 6 houses. But if it was a staged development where they built maybe the first 4 and left the top 2 plots, 3 and 4, out, they could use that for hard standing and park their vehicles. And then they would only need what they've got for the last 2. It's just a suggestion. I don't know whether we can do that or not, but if we would suggest maybe a staged development, that would mean the timescale would be longer, but it might alleviate the vehicular problems and tradesmen's.
Thank you. So more, Ian.
It's not, obviously it's not in the construction management plan, but we can feed that back to the developer.
I don't see any other hand. Oh, sorry, Councillor Garner, I'll bring you back.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on a couple of things. One, I've just noticed Cox's Lane. I mean, I wouldn't get too carried away about that being a good solution. I mean, that's not that much a wider of a road than Fairlawn Road. And if you're parking all the builders' cars in that lane, then any lorries that are coming along to turn into Fairlawn Lane are going to struggle. They're all going to have to leave the site, move their cars, come back to get it all in. So that's just one thing. The other thing, I just want to re-emphasise the point that this is a large, potentially a large development site, because there is another application for a much larger development on the site next to it. And there have been opportunities, or there should be opportunities, for developers to be able to work together to make sure the development all takes place away from Fairlawn Road. You know, that's just a thought. And the last thing, I'm a little bit disappointed that we as a committee seem to be driven by what we think an inspector might decide if we were to go with our opinion and vote that this is the wrong application at the wrong time for the residents in that road. We should stand up for what we believe in rather than just preempt, well, we don't like it, but the inspector will overrule it, so we'll vote in favour of it. I think that's a bit of a shame, but that's my last point.
Thank you for that, Councillor Garner. Councillor Shrub.
There is an empty university car park round the corner. Couldn't they park in there and walk round? The construction staff?
I'm going to stop there. I think we're going off subject a little bit. I do understand, Councillor Shrub, but we've got to go with what we have. I do understand. Councillor Hart, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Garner makes a valid point. Have we had a planning application for the other site? And if so, I assume from what you said earlier, Emma, that the access for these properties was to be from Fairlawn, isn't it? Fairlawn Road or whatever it is. Whatever it is, yeah. So that was always the intended access to those properties, wasn't it? So they weren't really going to use that other access to get into there. So they still won't. What I'm trying to suggest is, when the other buildings are put on the other area, is that going to be a highways road so they could then use that as access, or will it be a private road and they can't use that for access, is what I'm trying to aim at. Because if it can be, then could this be delayed till that is actually built, and then they can have access from that? If you see what I mean. Sorry.
I'll speak to Councillor Hart. I understand what you're getting at, but we've still got to keep to this application at the moment. What's coming in the future with other applications, I am aware of what you're saying. You know, I've read and seen. So, Emma.
Yeah, just to respond to a few of those points. So there is a pending application for the site to the north that I'm currently dealing with. It has been called into committee, so members will see it when it's ready to come forward. But at the moment, we're looking at a lot of amendments on that scheme. The layout that they've shown on that plan at the moment is not showing any form of link road with this road. So Fairlawn Road would be sort of the end of a cul-de-sac, and that would be it. And then access to the other site to the north would be from Northwood Road, so there'll be no link in terms of the roads. There has been a suggestion that if that site to the north comes forward and members decide to recommend approval of that scheme, that it could be that maybe one developer looks at both sites. So whilst we're putting this towards members tonight to say, you know, we're looking to agree or recommend approval of the variation of the condition, that's only if this site comes forward on its own, but it could well be that it does come forward with the other site to the north if that is approved, and that they would still continue to use Northwood Road as the access for construction works. So this is just the fact they don't want to make sure, or they want to make sure that they can develop this site on its own if they needed to. But it still means, yeah, there still could be use of Northwood Road for construction traffic in the future if the other site comes forward. I can't remember what my other point was actually.
Sorry, if I can just jump in there. I think that the point about holding up this development until another one comes forward is not reasonable. It's not a reasonable judgment in any sense, even though I think I agree it would be ideal, it would resolve the problem. But we can't hold up this application on that basis. It's patently unreasonable behaviour, and we would be affected at appeal on that sort of ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Moore, you wish to come back?
Yes, Chair. I just sort of emphasise what Mr Livingston just said. If the other application did come forward and it's a larger development, you're going to have more traders and more lorries working on two areas at once. But as that application is not before us, and we can't take that into consideration this one, I think we just need to talk about this one and move forward.
Thank you. Before I go to the Councillor Orban.
Yeah, just to come back on the point that Councillor Garner made, and I hear what he's saying about the comments that have been made that we would probably lose it on appeal if we were to refuse it. I think obviously the points that we need to take into account on that, and certainly I have, is that the statutory consultants are all happy with it. You know, if they weren't happy with it, you know, or you know, we would have a problem. So not just saying it for the sake of saying it, but it's saying it on the grounds that there are no grounds not to consider an appeal.
Thank you for that, Councillor Orban. I was about to touch on that as well, but thank you. Before I put this to the vote, I know we do have two residents. I'm sorry I can't bring you in. I know it must be frustrating, but I have to keep. Okay, I don't want to embarrass you at all. I just have to keep to the rules. And thank you for listening. So I'm going to put this to the vote. Members in favour, please show. Against? Any abstentions? No, that is carried. Thank you, members. That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance, and we will see you, hear you in the next, whenever. Thank you, members.